Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson and I'm joined as always on the other line. He's trying to convince our editors to let him cover the Final Four instead. It's Anthony, Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, what's going on?
I'm doing well. Much better than the Heat, I think. It's been a rough week, season, I guess. Just rough year for the Miami Heat. And the latest was a 101-92 loss to the Knicks. Another bad loss that really put them deeper into play-in tournament territory.
Yes. Yeah, at least we've got the Hurricanes and Owls these days because it's been we've talked about it. We come on here, we joke about it on the air and off mic all the time, like how every week is kind of the same with this team, where it's like we've known the flaws all year long. We've known kind of the ceiling of this team to an extent all year long. I think the floor has maybe been a little worse than we thought, but another loss for the Heat. We're recording late night after midnight on the East Coast on Wednesday night into Thursday. The Heat just lost back-to-back on a road trip, Toronto on Tuesday and then at New York on Wednesday. Not great. A week ago, we talked through all the possibilities, what they still need to do to maybe get out of the play-in and get it up to the 6th seed. And a couple things actually broke right for them this week, right? Brooklyn lost, New York lost over the weekend. And then the Heat just kind of melted down against Toronto or really melted down against Brooklyn on Saturday, lost to Toronto, lost to New York, and all of a sudden, like, now we're looking at play-in or barring a miracle, kind of a play-in situation for the Heat.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a week ago, 5 seed was a realistic possibility.
Yeah.
And now I was just looking at it. I think they're 4 games back of the Knicks.
Yeah, 1.5 behind Brooklyn.
4 games behind the Knicks, 1.5 behind Brooklyn with 5 games to play. 1.5 doesn't seem too bad, right? It feels like the Heat could catch Brooklyn, I guess, if they win a few games here down the stretch, but they're 2 behind Brooklyn in the loss column.
Yeah.
And really 3 behind Brooklyn in the loss column.
Because we've said the tie-break, yeah.
Yeah. So they need to win at least 4 of their final 5 games and hope Brooklyn loses pretty much 4 of their final 5 games to have any type of shot. Or I guess 4 of their final 6 games. They have 6 games left. To have any type of shot to pass Brooklyn. And with the way this team is playing right now, it's hard to see that, right? I mean,
that's the problem.
You have Dallas on Saturday. I know Dallas has been struggling, but still they have Luka and Kyrie. Like, that's not going to be easy. And then you have Detroit, which is obviously a very winnable game, but they have a 3-game trip next week. Right now, it really does look like more than ever, and they've been flirting with the play-in possibility for weeks now, but now more than ever, this 3-game skid, losing to both Brooklyn and New York in consecutive games, the play-in tournament seems very likely.
Yeah, I mean, we came on last week and laid out, as I said, the possibilities, and it was right. I think we recorded post game, or at least half the episode we recorded post game after they beat the Knicks last Wednesday in Miami.
Yeah.
And I think what we said was like, yes, they're like right on the like they're on the cusp of getting out of the play-in right here. But I think at that point they had gone 8-7 since the All-Star break. Like they'd maybe won a couple in a row, but like for the most part, like I think both of us were like, sure, they're close, but they've really over the last couple of months given no sign of a team that won't shoot itself in the foot at some point. And a couple of days later, they play Brooklyn. They're up. What were they? They were up by double digits in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
And like the worst third quarter imaginable, basically. And all of a sudden they get blown out by Brooklyn. And that didn't totally kill their chances. That I think 2 more losses in the next couple of nights did. But that was just like, it was there. That was the season right there. On Wednesday, you could talk yourself into it. And like, if this happens. But the problem with this Heat team is all year long, the ifs have not happened. And we saw that obviously on Saturday, which I think is going to kind of, if and when the Heat wind up in the play-in, I think that game is going to be the one that like kind of spells out exactly what went wrong. They had it right in front of them, and not only, well, maybe it's a little unusual because they got blown out and said we lost a close game, but they had it right in front of them against a team that they should be better than, and just totally wasted an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the 5 seed was they controlled their own destiny pretty much. I think they were like one game back of the Knicks. That's at one point last week.
Yeah.
With the game against the Knicks this week, like they pretty much controlled their own destiny. And they lose these 3 games straight. And the reality is, like, this is not a fluke. It's not they're losing close games. Like I think they have 6 double-digit losses since the break.
Got blown out by Brooklyn.
20 games.
Lost pretty handily to Toronto. They made a little bit of a push, but for the most part, they were down double digits. And then tonight was the closest of the bunch, but even then, a 9-point loss.
The bottom line is, since the break, 23rd best offense. So bad. 25th best defense.
Yeah, that's the story.
Bad.
Like, is that?
But both sides, like usually it's like, okay, the defense is good, but the offense is not, or the offense is good, but like both the offense and the defense bottom 10 in the league since the break. And they're 8-10. They've been a bad basketball team since the All-Star break. There's no way around it. Like oh, they're mediocre. No, they've been a bad basketball team since the All-Star break. And that, I mean, they shouldn't be. They have the personnel to be an above average team, right? They have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, 2 All-Star caliber players. Tyler Hero, fringe All-Star. I know the role players are struggling, but still, you have some quality rotation guys like Caleb Martin, and you add Kevin Love, who that's another story. He hasn't been shooting the ball well, but they have some good role players there on the edges. It's just they haven't been able to put it together. There's been slippage on defense, especially, and then offensively, you've seen, I guess, more flashes on that end and better offensive play during stretches, but you look at the raw numbers over the All-Star break, since the All-Star break, the offense hasn't been good either, despite like the little glimpses of hope they've shown you. So,
and despite Jimmy Butler like being basically the best player in the NBA,
being one of the best stretches of his NBA career, and they still have bottom 10 offense in that time. So, just really concerning. And I guess if they stay in 7, they'll host the first playing game, and they'll probably be favored in that game, and it might be Toronto or Atlanta. But how could anybody have confidence in this team with the way they're playing right now? Unfortunately,
Yeah, I mean, they just lost 3 in a row handily to 3. Like, the Knicks are a little bit better than the other 2, but the Raptors are a play-in team, obviously, and the Nets. This version of the Nets would have been a play-in. Like, if this is the Nets roster the entire year, they're a play-in team. Like, they just got blown out by 2 play-in teams in a row, and then lost to the team that's going to be the 5 seed. Like, they're not a team that's like, it's not like, if it actually didn't happen, but like when the Lakers, remember a couple years ago, they were in the play-in, and it was like Anthony Davis was hurt all year. Like, this team has just been mediocre all year. It's not like they've had some injuries and they're way better than all these play-in teams. They could easily win a 4-point game in the first play-in game, and whatever. And that's they could play the Celtics in round 1. But they could also easily lose 2 in a row, as we've said a lot. Yeah.
Also concerning these last 2 games, like they lost to the Raptors when the Raptors shot 22% on threes, and they lost by double digits to the Raptors when the Raptors shot 22% on threes. They lost to the Knicks when the Knicks they committed 16 turnovers and shot 12 of 23 from the foul line, 52% from the foul line. The Knicks still won by 9 points, and Julius Randle did not play in the second half because he sprained his ankle. It's just, again, like, I'm trying to find like some positives, but it's tough. It's just been tough. Even through the wins, like even last week, I think you and I both cautioned listeners, like, it's nice that they won this game. It is a big win, and Jimmy Butler's playing great, but they also shot 58% on threes that game and like squeaked out a win pretty much.
Yeah, and, I would say like the encouraging thing that happened was the 3-point shooting ticked back up, because all year long we're like, if that just normalizes a little bit, then this team is different, and it happened, and they played a little bit better during that stretch, but it's clearly not like they can just rely on that. And again, like as you said, they were doing that and still winning close games. Like their margins were thin, and they still are, and that's just, as we've said over and over, good teams blow bad teams out. the Heat play close games against everyone or get blown out. They have very few blowout wins.
Yeah. So is there any reason for positivity, like any reason for hope?
Well, so that's the thing. I think at this, like, because they're going to be in the play-in, right? Barring a miracle.
Well,
barring a miracle, they're going to be in the play-in.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Do they put, like, did someone calculate those odds? Like, this 538? I can't imagine they're higher than like a 10% chance of avoiding the play-in at this point.
I mean, yeah, probably. I would say no more than 20%.
Yeah. So not looking good. So how about this? Like, how do you handle these last? How many games are left now? 7, 6,
five games left.
Yeah. 5 games left. Well, like, obviously, I guess you're gonna just try to win them, but like, if you're the Heat, you got to be thinking like we got to figure it out, right? We got to figure out what we're gonna look like in the playoffs. So if you're Eric Spoelstra, how are you handling these final 5 games here?
Here's the thing: you got to still win these games because now Atlanta and Toronto are 1.5 games behind.
That's true.
Like, if you mess around here over the last week, you could find yourself on the road for the play-in tournament. Toronto has a tiebreaker. Toronto wins tomorrow. I think they play Charlotte tomorrow. Toronto's a tough schedule on the stretch, so it's not going to be easy for them. Mm-hmm. But Toronto, if they win tomorrow against Philly, so they play Philly on Saturday. Actually, they'll be 1 game back of the Heat. And they have a tiebreaker. So there's no sure thing that 7 is locked in. Like, the Heat could fall if they lose, 4 of their last 5 or something like that. So they don't have the luxury of saying, okay, like, either let's rest some guys maybe that are banged up, or let's try to figure some things out. Like, no, they have to still go into each of these games like Eric Spoelstra says, like, it's a playoff game for them, and try to win, because the play-in tournament is bad enough. Like, you definitely don't want to be going on the road to begin that play-in tournament.
Yeah, and if you, like you said, if you fall, I mean, definitely don't want to fall out of the top 8, because then your odds like plummet. You got to win 2 games obviously to get into that point. It's not a great situation. I don't know if there are a lot of positives other than Jimmy Butler is awesome, but even that's like not a super positive, because like I knew Jimmy Butler was awesome. Like, that's never been my question about this team. Do you have anything that, like, I don't know, Duncan Robinson
looked good. Yeah,
I don't think that's gonna stick, right? It's not like that. Like, that was just was the hot hand, and they went with him over Max Strus, who was in foul trouble. Like, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson's probably not going to be in the rotation on whatever day. When do they play next Friday? Like
Saturday. I mean, it'll be interesting. I wonder if he is. I don't know.
But does it matter even if he is?
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he makes some threes. Like, he doesn't fix their offense. He doesn't fix their defense.
Yeah,
they're mid.
Today was a weird game. It was weird because Jimmy and Bam combined for 21 points, which is like.
Well, I mean, not to keep harping on the concerning things, but Bam has not been great over these last couple of games, and that's been a killer for them.
Bam's numbers have dipped since the break, and he's said it a few times, and he said it again tonight after the loss in New York. Teams are really packing the paint against him and making it tough, where he's having instead of taking that little comfortable mid-range shot that he's kind of made his go-to move, he's having to pass out of that pocket more as opposed to looking for his own shot. So I think it's made him think a little bit when he gets the ball, and that's led to more turnovers, led to fewer shot attempts, led to like tougher looks. And I mean, he was, even though the offense wasn't good over the first half of the season, like, Bam was one of the more reliable aspects of it, and that hasn't really been there as much over the last few weeks. So that's, to me, that might be the most, along with the defense, like the overall defense, Bam might be the most concerning thing, or as of recently, just because he was like in the middle, and he still is, I guess, but he was in the middle of a career best season, kind of a breakout year, and becoming a bigger part of the offense, and that's kind of gone back to a little bit like last season, the last few weeks, like more indecisive.
I think indecisive, hesitant. Those are good ways to describe it. And for me, I don't know if it's a long-term concern when I think about like the Bam's career, because that's like ultimately where is this team going this year anyway. But I think it is a good explanation for part of what has gone wrong here since the All-Star break, because, as you said, he was having a career year. Like, when you had Bam and Jimmy having a bottom 10 offense does not make a whole lot of sense. But Bam is, kind of not been all-star Bam in the second half, so that explains some of it. But yeah, I think that's an astute observation from like you and Bam, just that teams are adjusting to him. He's got to adjust back. It's the what happens when you are a developing NBA player. Obviously the elite of the elite can get around it, but Bam is, like as you said, we've seen it in the past where maybe thinking a little bit too much, and we'll have to add counters and all that kind of stuff. And Bam has done such a good job throughout his career of improving every year, basically. Think of where he was coming out of the draft to where he is now. Like, he's one of the more improved guys probably in the entire NBA at that all-star level. So like, I'm sure he'll be fine next year, but yeah, it's concerning, and teams have kind of like, I don't know, figured him out, but they've definitely thrown him off here, and that just explains, I think, a lot of what has gone wrong.
Definitely. And one last thing, like one thing I've wondered too, during this skid, and really even before this losing streak, but really as of recently, should they go back to Caleb in the starting lineup? I don't want to go back to, I know we've said it every podcast episode of like, that's one of their better lineups. Everyone knows that already. Mm-hmm. But would you make that change this late in the schedule and go back to where you were, a month ago before you got the Kevin Love, or would you kind of just ride this out and see what happens at this point?
I feel like I'd just ride this out because, and again, that lineup is probably a better starting lineup, but the reason you changed it and went and got Kevin Love is because, with Caleb, what are you, a team that loses in the first round, basically, right? Like, without him, with this lineup, maybe you're a team that loses in the play-in, which is obviously a disaster, but is it that much more of a disaster than losing in the first round? Like,
right.
Yes, but also no. So I still think, I guess this is the upside play. We haven't seen a lot of upside from it, but like, I don't know. To me, it's just kind of like, what's the point? You gotta. Yeah. I know that's a very fatalistic attitude. It's very very nihilistic, but at the same time, like, we're taking big swings here. You took your swing. You don't want to turn around with your tail between your legs, and it's like running to first base when like you think that it's ball 4, but it's actually only ball 3. That's pretty embarrassing. Yeah. I don't know if that's what should inform your decision making, but like.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
But I understand why they made the switch, and I guess just go for it.
I didn't necessarily agree with it at the time, and we talked about it at that point. Like, I thought Caleb should stay in a certain lineup, but I get why they did it, and and you made the right point. Like, it was okay. We're basically a mediocre team right now with Caleb in the starting lineup. Let's see what can happen if we move Kevin Love into the starting lineup, move Caleb to the bench. Maybe it'll raise our ceiling.
Yeah, real crazy, like Orlando Robinson in the starting lineup, like just
Omer Yurtseven in the starting lineup.
Omer Yurtseven, Gabe and Kyle, like just get real crazy, like try out a whole bunch of different things in these last 5 games.
Maybe I don't know. It's tough. But other than all that, everything's great. So UM basketball, Final Four.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should talk about for the last a couple minutes of this episode.
FAU Miami in the Final Four? You think it's possible? I mean, obviously it's possible, but
do you think why not? I mean, to me, both games are kind of toss-ups to me. I think the teams on the right side of the bracket are quite a bit stronger than the teams on the left, in my opinion.
Do you think Miami is the second best team left in the tournament?
Yeah, probably. I mean, San Diego State's defense is really good, but I hate watching their offense.
So you're saying that the FAU San Diego State game probably won't be won't be fun to watch?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it'll be fun because those teams are going to be hyped up, right?
Yeah.
And FAU's fun to watch, actually.
That's true.
I think. Miami. My only concern with Miami remains their defense. Like, it would be unprecedented for a team with as bad a defense as they have to win the championship. Every team, as far as Ken Pom goes back, which is 20 years now, that has won the championship as a top 40 defense, and Miami is like not in the top 100.
So you're saying he'd have a chance?
Well, they do have a top 40 defense. It's true.
But Miami's defense has been better. Like, the Hurricanes' defense has been better lately.
Yes,
especially in the tournament.
What encourages me about them. I mean, they did give up 80 points in every game, which is like, but a part of that is their pace, obviously. But Yeah, I mean they locked down at the end of the Drake game, which it's the best they've looked on defense all year. And actually, in the end of a lot of these games, they locked down on Texas a little bit at the end of that game. Houston, they were kind of in control for most of that game. But yeah, I mean they can definitely win. They've got, I mean, UConn obviously favored, but Miami's got the best guy on the floor probably every night with Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller. Like, and they have like legit 3 NBA guys on that roster probably.
This is one of the, like, just a remarkable South Florida sports storyline that I can remember. Not just Miami, but FAU too. Like, for them to both make the Final Four.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The same year is just,
yeah,
just like mind blowing. I
remember I was in, I guess I was in middle school when the George Mason in DC.
Yeah.
When the George Mason run happened, obviously with Jim Larinaga as the coach, and they actually, that Sweet 16 was in DC. It was at whatever they were calling the Verizon Center, MCI Center, whatever it was back then. And that was a huge, I mean, it was like Maryland was a big deal back then, but like George Mason took over the world. I remember walking out of a rec basketball game and watching the end of the UConn game, the George Mason UConn game on the, roll-in TV, like in the classroom at the community center. Like, it was a huge deal, and it's, man. I hope it turns more people into college basketball fans down here. I know college basketball is not what it used to be, but still.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. I honestly have not, and obviously it's because this is the first time they're in the Final Four, but I have not, like, I have family members that like never ever watch college basketball, like texting me like, oh my God, did you see that game? Like, did you see the finish of the game? Like, this is a way to kind of generate that type of interest that they've never really had before, because they've never had this much success. I mean, to go to the Elite Eight last year and the Final Four this year, like, now they're starting to stack together these
and I'll say
seasons. That's important.
The crowds at the Watsco Center were good this year. It's a small building. It's not hard to pack that. But at least the student turnout was really, really good all year long. And I've always thought, if you're a student, like, I know students complain about not being able to go to the football games because you had to take a bus. Like, you can walk to the Watsco Center, but that place should be packed, especially with how good that program has been pretty much since Jim Larinaga got there. So hopefully that it adds to it. I know Coral Gables is not the easiest place to get to for people from around South Florida, but again, it's a small building, and at least the students are going to pack that place next year. And bummed I didn't get to an FAU game at any point this year. I kept saying it with my parents are big college basketball fans, just being from Maryland, and they live in Delray now, and we kept being like, oh, we should go to a game, and never did. I'm kind of bummed about that.
Miami didn't play FAU then, obviously, right? They didn't play them this year.
No. FAU beat the Gators up in Gainesville early in the year. That was like kind of like, whoa, this FAU team. I mean, the Gators wound up not being that good, but
it wasn't really an upset. It wasn't the upset everyone thought at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it was that big of an upset, probably spread wise, but yeah, I mean, they're really good. And I mean, they are, I wrote about it today. They're a Cinderella kind of in name only. Like, all their metrics are impressive. I think they're 17th in KenPom. They were ranked at the end of the regular season. Like, it's not like they were out of nowhere. They got the defense. I don't know if they got the guards, but the guards seem pretty good. And, if they win it all, it wouldn't be a shock at this point.
It's an accomplishment for those two programs that Jimmy Butler and Luka will be playing against each other on Saturday night. And not many people will probably be watching that game because they'll be watching FAU and Miami college basketball. So good for them.
Yeah, it's cool. Have you watched a lot of the tournament otherwise? It was really like, for people who are into it for the draft purposes, it was not like, I don't know what you were taking away from this tournament.
I've honestly I've watched all the Miami games pretty much. Yeah. From start to finish. And I've watched most of the FAU games. Not all of them. I've seen like the second half of some only. But Miami game from start to finish. And Texas in that first half, I was like, man, this team is like unbeatable. Like, they're gonna win the championship because they were making every shot. Yeah. That game, and then Miami just. Yeah, I think Marcus Carr got dinged up a little bit, and they couldn't get quite as good of shots. But yeah, I mean, that first half was like electric. Better shooting than the Heat have had all year. My God, yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
Isaiah Wong to the Heat. You like that? Wooga Poplar to the Heat. Jordan Miller to the Heat. Jordan Miller feels like a great Heat guy.
Jordan Miller and Wooga are my two favorite.
Wooga's awesome.
Well, I like man, I'm blanking on his name. It's late. I'm tired, but the center.
Oh, Norchad Omier.
Norchad Omier. Yeah,
Norchad. I don't think he's an NBA player, but
he's not an NBA guy because he's a kind of in between guy. But I just love the way he plays and the way he just goes for every rebound. He's just like a fun college basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, NBA.
Did you watch the Indiana game? What do you think of Trace Jackson Davis?
I mean, he wasn't that impressive that game. They did a good job on him.
Yeah, they did a good job on him. But he's a guy who could like be in the Heat's range.
Yeah,
which is like.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they kind of, I don't know, I didn't watch enough of him to kind of make it like to kind of grade it, but just that game alone, like the fact they were able to take him out for the most part, relatively speaking, compared to what he usually does without really like a big man on the to go against him, like was a little concerning for me as far as like translating to the NBA. So I don't know, but Jordan Miller, I know he's older. He's just so skilled.
He's actually not quite as old as I thought he was like 24. He's only 23, which not the biggest difference, but it matters a little bit. 23-year-olds get drafted, 24-year-olds don't. But yeah, obviously he was awesome in the
perfect game.
Elite Eight game, but
yeah,
he's been kind of the unheralded guy. He was like the kind of unheralded guy last. I don't think he's quite as unheralded this year, but last year he was like the glue. He was the ultimate glue guy. In college basketball, you got to have a glue guy because you're not going to have 5 NBA players on the court. You got to have glue guys, and he's probably the best in the country in that role.
Yeah, and he's a very talented glue guy, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and Wooga is just, I mean, his length, his athleticism.
Yeah, I'm wondering
his shooting.
Like
that's.
He seems like he's going to be the guy next year, but I wonder if this would test. I mean, I'm sure he'll test the waters this year because this draft does kind of fall off quickly, where like a guy like Wooga I could see him being a first round pick because like after there's obviously Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Scoot, Thompson twins, Taylor Hendricks. It falls off really quickly. We're like pretty mediocre, like not mediocre, but like guys who would not be lottery picks in most years are in the mix for lottery. So that'll be interesting, I think. One guy I do like, Kassan Wallace from Kentucky. I love Kentucky guards. I don't know if you watched any of what game was it? Probably the Kansas State game. Oh, we got the Kansas State guard is definitely the coolest player in the draft.
The point guard? Yeah.
Marquise Noel.
Oh, his passes are incredible.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see what happens with him in the draft because he's very small, but
is he a senior? He's a senior, right?
I think he's a senior. I mean, it's hard to know now in college basketball.
Yeah.
Because everyone lists it differently. I'm sure I guess he could come back, but I'm sure someone will give him a shot, right? He was too impressive in this tournament not to. And there is, we don't have a short guy in the NBA anymore, do we? I feel like.
Yeah, I think. No, I think you're right. They're really
since Isaiah Thomas is like kind of gone out of the league, and there's
how short is he? How short is he?
I think he's listed at 5'8".
Wow, I didn't know he was that small.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's always one, right? There's him, obviously Earl Boykins, Nate Robinson. We don't have a short NBA player anymore. Are you searching shortest players in NBA?
I just googled shortest player in the NBA, but it came up with Muggsy Bogues, and I'm the current player in the NBA.
Here's an article. Facundo Campazzo, 5'10".
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Earl Boykins is a recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really
Andre Miller, I feel like was under 6 feet probably.
Was he?
Maybe he was 6 on the dot. I mean, Kyle Lowry's pretty small. I mean, you don't think of it because he's a burly fella, but.
Norris Cole is small with the.
Yeah, Norris Cole.
He was listed at 6'2", but it didn't seem like he was 6'2".
He was lithe.
Yeah, that's true. Right, we done?
Yeah, I think we're done.
Tired.
We've gotten way off track here. Anyway, thanks as always for listening. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. Follow him for Heat coverage and Miami basketball tweets. You can follow me on Twitter at dbwilson2. I've been covering the Miami Open this week, which has been kind of fun. I mean, obviously it's a very busy time at the Herald with a Final Four one that I don't think people are banking on, but it's been a good excuse to get out and watch some tennis. I'm a sneaky tennis guy, so I've enjoyed getting out there.
Maybe you run into Jimmy Butler this weekend.
Francis Tiafoe hadn't gotten knocked out so quickly. Oh yeah, they're back home. I wonder if he will be there.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be there.
He was out there one of the days, right? Yeah, he watched Coco one day, I think, didn't he?
Yes, he was out there to watch. Also, I think the number one men's tennis player, what's his name? The guy from
Alcaraz.
Yeah, he went to watch him last weekend as well. I think on Sunday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he'll be there Sunday because they don't play Sunday.
The men's final. It's scheduled for Sunday. The rain keeps throwing things off, but
well, if it's Sunday, he'll be there because that's just my guess. Because why wouldn't he be? So
I like how Jimmy Butler is like a sneaky tennis guy. Also,
he's like into everything.
Yeah, he's just into everything. I guess is what it is. Obviously, he's a well-known soccer guy, but
he loves tennis.
He's always
says tennis is his favorite sport. I think even more than soccer. Like he loves tennis.
All right. I think that's good. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks as always for listening. We're tired. It's time to get in bed. I'll talk to you guys next week.
See you guys.